Chapter 1. The Galactic Theater. Captain Jack Harper stood at attention on the bridge of the U.S. Artemis, his eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed the vastness of space before them. The year was 2157, and humanity had long since taken to the stars, establishing colonies and forging alliances with alien races. But with expansion came conflict, and the United Earth forces found themselves embroiled in a bitter war against the Zar'kesh Dominion, a ruthless empire bent on galactic domination. Harper's hand unconsciously moved to scratch behind the ears of his constant companion, a Belgian Malinois named Rex. The dog's presence on the bridge was no mere indulgence. Rex was as much a member of the crew as any human. In fact, he was Harper's most trusted combat partner. "Captain," the ship's AI intoned, "we're receiving a priority transmission from UF Command." Harper nodded, his steel-gray eyes narrowing. "Put it through." The holographic display shifted, revealing the grizzled face of Admiral Chen. "Captain Harper, we have a situation. The Zar'kesh have launched a surprise attack on our research outpost on Proxima Centauri B. Your mission is to lead a ground assault and secure the facility. Failure is not an option." "Understood, Admiral." "We'll get it done," Harper replied, his jaw set with determination. As the transmission ended, Harper turned to his executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Martinez. "Prep the dropships. I want our K9 units ready for deployment in 30 minutes. Martinez nodded sharply. "Aye, sir. I'll notify Sergeant Wilson to prepare the dogs." Harper looked down at Rex, who was already alert and focused, as if he understood the gravity of the situation. "Looks like we're going into battle again, boy. Ready to show those alien bastards what Earth's finest can do." Rex let out a low, affirmative growl. Chapter 2. The Evolution of War Dogs. As Harper made his way to the ship's armory, his mind wandered to the events that had led to this moment. The integration of dogs into space combat roles hadn't happened overnight. It was the result of years of research, training, and the unbreakable bond between humans and their canine companions. The story began in the early 2050s when Dr. Marcus Reinhardt, a brilliant xenobiologist and former military K9 handler, made a groundbreaking discovery. While studying alien physiology, he found that many extraterrestrial species possessed a heightened sensitivity to certain pheromones and bioelectric fields. This sensitivity gave them an edge in combat, allowing them to anticipate movements and detect hidden threats. Reinhardt's eureka moment came when he realized that Earth's dogs, with their incredible sense of smell and innate ability to read human emotions, could be enhanced to match and even surpass these alien capabilities. He theorized that with the right combination of genetic engineering and cybernetic augmentation, dogs could become the ultimate combat assistants in the new frontier of space warfare. The military, always on the lookout for new advantages, jumped at Reinhardt's proposal. Project Cerberus was born, named after the mythical three-headed dog that guarded the gates of the underworld. Harper remembered the controversy that surrounded the project in its early days. Animal rights activists protested, calling it cruel and unethical. But as tensions with alien races escalated and humanity found itself outmatched in many areas of combat, public opinion began to shift. The first generation of enhanced war dogs proved their worth in the Mars Rebellion of 2072. A small unit of 30 handlers and their canine partners quelled an uprising that had stymied conventional forces for months. The dog's ability to detect hidden rebels, sniff out explosive compounds unfamiliar to human noses, and provide unparalleled support in close-quarters combat turned the tide of the conflict. From there, the program expanded rapidly. Dogs were bred selectively for specific traits: intelligence, loyalty, and adaptability. Genetic modifications enhanced their already formidable senses and physical capabilities. Cybernetic implants allowed for seamless communication between dog and handler, as well as integration with advanced weapon systems and battlefield analytics. By the time humanity made first contact with the Zar'kesh in 2134, the K9 combat units were a well-established and respected branch of the military. And when diplomacy failed and war broke out, these four-legged warriors proved to be humanity's secret weapon. Harper reached the armory, where Sergeant Mike Wilson, The ship's head canine trainer was already gearing up the dogs. The sight never failed to impress him. 20 of Earth's finest canines stood in perfect formation, each a marvel of nature and technology. All prepped and ready, Captain Wilson reported, his scarred face breaking into a grim smile. These boys are itching for some action. Harper nodded, moving down the line to inspect the dogs. Each wore a sleek, form-fitting combat harness that provided protection and housed their advanced tech. Multispectral sensors, communications arrays, and weapon mounts were seamlessly integrated into the design. He stopped in front of a massive Rottweiler named Tank. The dog's left eye glowed with a soft blue light, a cybernetic replacement that gave him enhanced vision across multiple spectrums. Tank's handler, Corporal Rodriguez, stood proudly at attention. "How's he handling the new ocular implant?" Harper asked. Rodriguez grinned. "Like a champ, sir. In our last training sim, he spotted a cloaked Zar'kesh scout from 500 meters out. Bastard never knew what hit him." Harper nodded approvingly and continued down the line. Each dog was a specialist in its own right. There were German Shepherds optimized for recon and patrol, bloodhounds with olfactory senses so acute they could detect the specific chemical signatures of different alien species, and compact but deadly Jack Russell Terriers trained for sabotage and electronic warfare. At the end of the line stood Rex, already outfitted in his combat gear. Harper knelt down, looking his partner in the eye. "Ready to raise some hell, boy?" Rex's tail wagged once, his posture radiating controlled energy and focus. "All right, gentlemen," Harper addressed the handlers. "You know the drill. We're dropping into hostile territory to secure a vital research facility. Your dogs are our eyes, ears, and noses down there. Trust their instincts, watch each other's backs, and let's bring everyone home in one piece." A chorus of hooah echoed through the armory. As the teams filed out towards the dropships, Harper couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. These men and their canine partners represented the best of what humanity had to offer. In the face of a hostile universe, they had taken their oldest animal companion and forged it into something extraordinary. The dogs of war were about to be unleashed, and the enemy wouldn't know what hit them. Chapter 3: Landfall. The dropships shuddered as they entered Proxima Centauri B's atmosphere. Inside, handlers performed last-minute checks on their gear and their canine partners. The dogs, for their part, remained calm and focused, a testament to their rigorous training and augmented nervous systems. Captain Harper's voice came through the comm system. 2 minutes to touchdown. Expect heavy resistance. Remember, our priority is securing the research data. Everything else is secondary." Sergeant Wilson, seated next to his German Shepherd, Shadow, leaned over to Corporal Rodriguez. "Bet you a week's rations my girl bags more Zar'kesh than your overgrown pup." Rodriguez smirked. "You're on, old man. Tank, here's got a score to settle after that last scrap on Titan." Their banter was cut short as the dropships touched down with a bone-jarring thud. The rear hatches blew open, and organized chaos erupted. "Go, go, go," Harper shouted, leading the charge with Rex at his side. The dogs bounded out ahead of their human counterparts, their enhanced senses immediately processing the alien environment. Rex's nose twitched as he picked up the acrid scent of plasma weapons discharge and the distinct musk of Zar'kesh warriors. The research outpost loomed before them, a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and laboratory modules. Smoke rose from several breached sections, and the staccato sound of weapons fire echoed across the barren landscape. Harper's tactical display lit up as data from the K9 units streamed in. Red icons representing enemy positions popped up faster than any human recon team could have managed. "Wilson, take your team and secure the eastern approach," Harper ordered. "Rodriguez, you're with me. We're punching through the main entrance." The squad split off, each handler moving in perfect sync with their canine partner. Shadow, Wilson's shepherd, took point, her cybernetically enhanced eyes scanning for hidden threats. She froze suddenly, hackles raised. "Contact front," Wilson warned, just as a squad of Zar'kesh warriors materialized from behind cloaking fields. The alien soldiers were fearsome to behold, 2.5 meters tall, with iridescent scales and 4 arms, each wielding a deadly energy weapon. but they had never faced anything like Earth's war dogs. Before the Zar'kesh could open fire, Shadow was upon them. She moved like a gray blur, her jaws clamping down on the nearest warrior's gun arm with force that could shatter steel. The alien's scream of pain was cut short as Wilson and his team opened fire, their weapons guided by targeting data from Shadow's implants. On the other side of the complex, Harper and Rodriguez's team encountered heavy resistance at the main entrance. The Zar'kesh heavy weapons team had set up a fortified position, laying down a withering field of fire that pinned the human forces behind cover. "Tank, seek Rodriguez," commanded. The massive Rottweiler sprang into action. His armor deflected glancing blows from enemy fire as he charged the Zar'kesh position. The aliens, unused to such tactics, faltered in their defense. Tank leaped clear over the barricade, 80 kilos of muscle and cybernetics slamming into the lead gunner. In the confusion, Harper and his team surged forward. Rex darted between legs, his sharp teeth finding vulnerable points in the alien's armor. The Canine sensory feed gave Harper a 360-degree awareness of the battlefield, allowing him to coordinate the assault with uncanny precision. Within minutes, the entrance was secured. Harper patched into the outpost's security network, his neural implant interfacing with the system. "Lots of activity in the central lab," he reported. "Looks like they're after the prototype terraforming tech." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Can't let that happen. Who knows what kind of havoc they could wreak with that." As they pushed deeper into the facility, the advantages of the K9 units became even more apparent. In the confined spaces and twisting corridors, the dogs' agility and sensory capabilities were unmatched. They sniffed out hidden enemies, detected booby traps, and provided constant, real-time intelligence that kept the human soldiers one step ahead of their foes. Tank's enhanced olfactory sensors picked up traces of a nerve agent the Zar'kesh had released into the ventilation system. Thanks to his warning, the team was able to don protective gear before entering the affected areas. Without the dogs, they would have walked right into a death trap. The battle raged on for hours, a brutal room-by-room struggle to reclaim the outpost. The Zar'kesh fought with the desperate ferocity of those who knew failure meant certain death at the hands of their superiors. But they were up against a force they couldn't fully comprehend. The millennia-old partnership between humans and dogs evolved into something that transcended the boundaries of flesh and machine. Chapter 4. The Heart of the Beast. Captain Harper wiped sweat and alien blood from his brow as he surveyed the carnage around him. They had fought their way to the central laboratory, leaving a trail of Zar'kesh corpses in their wake, but the cost had been high. 3 handlers and their canine partners had fallen, their sacrifice ensuring the mission's success. The laboratory door loomed before them, sealed by a complex locking mechanism. Harper turned to Corporal Rodriguez. "Think Tank can crack it?" Rodriguez grinned. "Watch and learn, sir. Tank hack." The Rottweiler padded forward, a small panel on his combat harness sliding open to reveal an array of specialized electronic warfare tools. Tank interfaced directly with the door's control panel, his canine brain working in concert with his cybernetic implants to decipher and bypass the security protocols. Seconds ticked by, each moment increasing the risk of a Zar'kesh counterattack. Finally, with a hiss of hydraulics, the door slid open. "Good boy," Rodriguez said, tossing Tank a treat from a pouch on his belt. The dog caught it mid-air, his tail wagging once before he resumed his alert stance. Harper raised his hand, signaling the team to hold position. He peered into the dimly lit laboratory, his enhanced vision piercing the gloom. "I count at least a dozen hostiles," he whispered. "Looks like they've got hostages, our science team." Sergeant Wilson's gruff voice came over the comm. "We're in position to breach from the secondary entrance, Captain. Just say the word." Harper nodded, though Wilson couldn't see it. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1. Execute." The next few moments were a blur of action. Rex shot forward, a low growl emitter on his harness projecting a sound that disoriented the Zar'kesh's sensitive hearing. Tank followed, his bulk smashing into a cluster of alien warriors and scattering them like bowling pins. Harper and his team poured into the room, their weapons spitting death with unerring accuracy thanks to the targeting data provided by their canine partners. From the other side, Wilson's squad burst in, led by Shadow and 2 other shepherds. The Zar'kesh, caught off guard by the coordinated assault, fell quickly. Those that attempted to use the human scientists as shields found themselves outmaneuvered by the agile war dogs, who darted in to disable them with precision strikes to vulnerable joints and nerve clusters. In less than a minute, it was over. The laboratory was secure, and the surviving Zar'kesh had been subdued. Harper approached the lead scientist, a doctor, Emilia Chen, who was shaken but unharmed. "Doctor, are you all right? Is the prototype safe?" Chen nodded, her eyes wide as she took in the scene around her. "Why, yes, Captain. They were trying to access our main database, but we managed to initiate the emergency purge protocols before they broke through." "Good work," Harper said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll get you and your team to safety. But first, I need to know what exactly were they after. What's so important about this terraforming technology?" Chen's expression grew grave. "It's not just terraforming, Captain. We've discovered a way to rapidly alter the fundamental properties of matter on a planetary scale. In the right hands, it could transform barren worlds into habitable paradises in a fraction of the time we thought possible." "And in the wrong hands," Harper prompted, though he already suspected the answer. "It could be the ultimate weapon of mass destruction," Chen replied softly. "Entire worlds could be rendered uninhabitable in days." Harper's jaw clenched. The implications were staggering. No wonder the Zar'kesh had committed so many resources to this raid. If they had succeeded. A wet nose nudged his hand, breaking him from his dark thoughts. Harper looked down to see Rex gazing up at him, the dog's unwavering loyalty a reminder of why they fought. "All right, let's move out," Harper ordered. "Wilson, secure any research materials, Doctor. Chen deems critical. Rodriguez, get on the horn to the Artemis. I want evac ships ready to dust off in 10 minutes. As the team prepared to exfiltrate, Harper couldn't help but reflect on the battle they'd just won. The Zar'kesh had superior numbers, advanced technology, and the element of surprise. Yet they had been defeated by an asset they consistently underestimated: humanity's oldest and most trusted ally. The war dogs had proved their worth 100 times over. Their enhanced senses had detected hidden enemies and environmental hazards. Their speed and strength had turned the tide in close-quarters combat. And their unbreakable bond with their human handlers had provided a level of coordinated action that no purely technological solution could match. As they made their way back to the extraction point, Harper couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The Zar'kesh wouldn't take this defeat lightly, and the existence of the terraforming technology meant the stakes of the war had just been raised exponentially. Chapter 5: Aftermath and Revelations. The U.S. Artemis hung in high orbit above Proxima Centauri b, its hull bearing fresh scars from Zar'kesh fighters that had attempted to prevent their escape. In the ship's medical bay, Captain Harper stood with his arms crossed, watching his doctor. Chen and her team underwent thorough examinations. Rex lay at Harper's feet, his ears perked and alert despite the exhaustion evident in his posture. The dog hadn't left Harper's side since they'd returned to the ship, as if sensing his handler's unease. Commander Martinez approached, her uniform still stained with sweat and grime from the ground assault. "Sir, Admiral Chen is requesting a full debrief. He's not happy about the loss of the research facility." Harper nodded grimly. "Can't say I blame him. Patch him through to my quarters in 10. I need to check on our teams first." As Martinez left to carry out his orders, Harper knelt down next to Rex. "Come on, boy. Let's go see how the others are doing." They made their way to the K9 unit's specialized quarters. The room was a mix of high-tech medical equipment and features that wouldn't look out of place in a top-tier veterinary clinic. Several of the dogs were undergoing treatment for injuries sustained during the battle. Sergeant Wilson looked up from where he was tending to Shadow's bandaged paw. The shepherd's cybernetic eye glowed softly as nanobots worked to repair damage to her internal systems. "How are they holding up?" Sergeant Harper asked. Wilson's weathered face broke into a tired smile. "Tough as nails, sir. A few scrapes and burns, but nothing our docs can't handle. These boys and girls will be ready for action before the Zar'kesh know what hit him." Harper nodded, moving through the room to check on each of the injured dogs. He stopped at a bed where a young handler, Private Chen, no relation to the doctor, sat next to his motionless Doberman. "How's Razor doing?" Private Harper asked softly. Chen looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "They say he'll pull through, sir. But he might lose the leg. They're not sure if the cybernetics can fully repair the damage." Harper placed a hand on the private's shoulder. "Razor's a fighter. And even if he can't return to frontline duty, there are plenty of other roles where his skills and your partnership will be invaluable." The private nodded, gratitude evident in his eyes. As Harper turned to leave, he felt a tug on his pant leg. Looking down, he saw Tank, Rodriguez's Rottweiler, holding a battered chew toy in his mouth. Harper couldn't help but chuckle. "All right, big guy. One quick game, then I've got a date with the brass." He took the toy and tossed it across the room. Tank bounded after it, his massive frame belying his agility. For a moment, the tension in the room lifted as handlers and dogs alike watched the simple game of fetch. But duty called, and Harper reluctantly made his way to his quarters for the debrief. Rex followed, taking up his usual position by the desk as Harper activated the holographic communication array. Admiral Chen's stern visage flickered into view. "Captain Harper, I trust you understand the gravity of the situation." "Yes, sir," Harper replied. "The Zar'kesh came closer to acquiring the terraforming technology than we'd like to admit, if it hadn't been for the quick thinking of Dr. Chen and her team." "And the effectiveness of your K9 units," the Admiral interjected. "I've reviewed the preliminary reports. Impressive work, Captain. It seems Dr. Reinhardt's project has exceeded even our most optimistic projections." Harper nodded. "The dogs performed exceptionally, sir, but I fear we may have tipped our hand. The Zar'kesh will be analyzing every scrap of data from this encounter. They'll be looking for ways to counter our advantage." Admiral Chen's holographic image leaned forward, "Which is precisely why I'm issuing new orders, effective immediately. The Artemis is to proceed to the Sirius system. We've detected unusual Zar'kesh activity near one of their forward operating bases there." Sirius, Harper frowned. "That's awfully close to the Orion Arm colonies. If they're staging for a major offensive." "Exactly," Chen confirmed. "Your mission is twofold. First, gather intelligence on Zar'kesh movements and intentions. Second, field test some modifications to your K9 units." Harper's eyebrow raised. "Modifications, sir?" "Doctor Reinhardt has been busy," the Admiral explained. "He's developed new augmentations that he believes will give our war dogs an even greater edge. The specs are being transmitted to your ship's science officer now. I suggest you review them carefully." "Understood, Admiral. We'll make for Sirius immediately." As the transmission ended, Harper let out a long breath. He looked down at Rex, who gazed back with unwavering loyalty. "Looks like we're not out of the fire yet," Boy, Harper murmured, scratching behind Rex's ears. "Let's go see what the good doctor's cooked up for you and your friends." Chapter 6: Evolution's Edge. The Artemis streaked through hyperspace, its powerful engines propelling the ship towards the Sirius system. In the ship's main laboratory, Captain Harper stood with his arms crossed, watching as Dr. Reinhardt's holographic image explained the latest advancements in the War Dog program. As you can see, Captain Reinhardt's accented voice filled the room. These new neural interfaces will allow for even greater synchronization between handler and canine. Reaction times will be reduced by an estimated 40%, and the dogs will be able to process complex tactical data in real time. Harper nodded, his eyes flickering to where Rex lay on an examination table, patiently enduring the attention of the ship's veterinary cybernetics specialist. "And you're certain these upgrades won't cause any adverse effects? These aren't just weapons we're talking about, Doctor. They're our partners." Reinhardt's holographic face softened. "I understand your concern, Captain, but I assure you we've run extensive simulations and preliminary trials. The dogs' cognitive functions will remain intact, enhanced even. Their core personalities and the bonds they've formed with their handlers won't be affected. All right, Harper conceded. How long will the procedure take? For the full squadron? About 48 hours, the specialist chimed in. We'll need to do the upgrades in stages to ensure proper integration. Harper checked his tactical display. That'll put us in the Sirius system with about a day to spare before we reach the target area. Make it happen. As the medical team began preparations, Harper knelt beside Rex. The dog's intelligent eyes met his, filled with trust. This war's about to get a lot more complicated, boy, Harper murmured. But we'll face it together like always. Rex's tail thumped once against the table in response. Over the next 2 days, the Artemis hummed with activity. While the K9 units underwent their upgrades, the rest of the crew prepared for what promised to be a high-stakes mission. Intelligence reports trickled in, painting a disturbing picture of increased Zar'kesh activity in the Sirius system. Harper spent much of his time in tactical meetings with his officers, poring over star charts and enemy troop movements. But he made sure to visit the K9 unit regularly, checking on the progress of the upgrades and offering words of encouragement to the handlers, many of whom were understandably anxious about the procedures their partners were undergoing. Finally, as the Artemis dropped out of hyperspace on the outskirts of the Sirius system, Dr. Reinhardt gave the all-clear. The upgrades were complete, and the war dogs were ready for action. Harper made his way to the K9 quarters, where the handlers were being reunited with their canine partners. The atmosphere was a mix of excitement and apprehension. Sergeant Wilson was the first to put the new upgrades to the test. He stood at one end of the room, a series of holographic obstacle courses and target drones shimmering into existence around him. Shadow, engage, Wilson commanded. The German shepherd's eyes glowed with an inner light as she processed the tactical data being fed directly into her enhanced brain. She moved like liquid lightning, weaving through the obstacle course with impossible grace. Holographic enemies appeared and were neutralized before they could even fully materialize. The entire display lasted less than 10 seconds. When it was over, Shadow trotted back to Wilson's side, tail wagging as if she'd just performed a simple trick. A low whistle escaped Harper's lips. Impressive, he said, turning to Rodriguez. Your turn, Corporal. Let's see what Tank can do. Rodriguez grinned. Gladly, sir. Tank, seek and destroy. The massive Rottweiler bounded forward. The holographic scenario shifted, presenting a complex urban environment filled with civilian targets and hidden enemies. Tank moved with a precision that belied his size, effortlessly distinguishing friend from foe. His powerful jaws clamped down on holographic weapons, while his armored bulk shielded simulated civilians from harm. As the demonstrations continued, Harper felt a mixture of awe and unease. The war dogs had always been formidable, but this was something else entirely. They were operating at a level that blurred the line between animal and machine, their actions guided by a hybrid intelligence that combined canine instinct with advanced AI. Their incredible commander, Martinez murmured, coming to stand beside Harper. But sir, do you ever wonder if we're taking this too far? These animals never chose to be soldiers. Harper's hand absently stroked Rex's head as he considered her words. No, they didn't choose this life, he agreed. But neither did most of the men and women under our command. What I do know is that these dogs are loyal to a fault. They understand, in their way, what we're fighting for. And they've saved more lives than I can count. He turned to face Martinez fully. We're up against an enemy that would enslave or exterminate us without a second thought. An enemy with resources and technology that sometimes seem overwhelming. If the bond between humans and dogs can help turn the tide, well, I'd say we owe it to every species in this galaxy to use every ethical advantage we have. Martinez nodded slowly. I see your point, sir. I just hope we don't lose our humanity in the process of defending it. That, Harper said with a grim smile, is why we have people like you to keep us honest, Commander. Their conversation was interrupted by a priority alert from the bridge. Harper's tactical display lit up, showing a massive energy surge in a nearby sector of space. Looks like the Zar'kesh are making their move, Harper growled. All hands to battle stations. Martinez, Get our ground teams prepped for immediate deployment." As klaxons blared throughout the ship, Harper looked down at Rex, seeing his own determination mirrored in the dog's eyes. "This is it, boy," he said softly. "Time to show the galaxy what Earth's best friends can really do." Rex's bark was drowned out by the sound of the Artemis's engines roaring to life, propelling them towards what promised to be the most crucial battle of the war so far. The fate of humanity, and perhaps the entire galaxy, would rest in part on the paws of Earth's most loyal and unexpected defenders. Chapter 7: Operation Sirius Strike. The Artemis emerged from its stealth approach, the starfield outside the bridge viewscreen distorting as the ship's cloaking field disengaged. Before them loomed a massive Zar'kesh battle station, its gunmetal hull bristling with weapon emplacements. Captain Harper stood at the center of the bridge, Rex at his side. The dog's eyes glowed faintly as he processed the tactical data streaming through his neural implants. "Status report," Harper barked. "Zar'kesh defenses are on high alert, sir," the tactical officer responded. "They've detected our presence, but they seem confused. I don't think they were expecting a ship of our size to get this close undetected." Harper nodded grimly. "Then we've got our window. Launch strike teams Alpha through Delta. Martinez, you have the con. Keep the Artemis out of their main firing solutions, but be ready to provide fire support if our ground teams need it." "Aye," Sir Martinez replied, sliding into the captain's chair as Harper made his way to the drop bay. The ship's halls were a flurry of activity as Marines and their K9 partners made final preparations. Harper joined his own strike team, checking his gear one last time as Rex underwent a last-minute systems diagnostic. Sergeant Wilson approached, his face set in grim determination. "All teams report ready, sir. We're as prepared as we'll ever be." Harper clasped the sergeant's shoulder. "Good. You all know the mission. We infiltrate the station, locate their command center, and extract any intel we can on their plans for the Orion Arm. The K9 units are our ace in the hole. The Zar'kesh won't be expecting them, especially not with these new upgrades." Wilson nodded. "We won't let you down, sir." "See that you don't," Harper replied, his voice softening. "And Mike, make sure you all come back alive. That's an order." The dropships launched in perfect sequence, streaking towards the Zar'kesh station like a swarm of angry hornets. The station's point defense systems came to life, filling space with a deadly lattice of energy beams and projectiles. But the human pilots, their reflexes augmented by neural links to their vessels, danced through the barrage with preternatural skill. They were assisted by targeting data from the K9 units, whose enhanced senses could predict enemy firing patterns with uncanny accuracy. Harper's drop ship shuddered as it touched down in one of the station's auxiliary hangars. The rear hatch blew open, and the strike team poured out, Rex taking point. The dog's nose twitched as he processed the alien sense of the station. Through their neural link, Harper received a flood of sensory data: the acrid smell of ozone from energy weapons, the musk of Zar'kesh warriors, and 1,000 other details that painted a vivid picture of their surroundings. "Contact," Wilson shouted as a squad of Zar'kesh soldiers rounded a corner. But the war dogs were already in motion. Shadow and Tank burst forward, their enhanced muscles propelling them at speeds that blurred the line between animal and missile. They slammed into the alien warriors with bone-crushing force, scattering them like bowling pins. The human soldiers followed up, their weapons spitting death with unerring accuracy thanks to targeting data provided by their K9 partners. In a matter of seconds, the Zar'kesh squad was neutralized. "Rex, find us a path to the command center," Harper ordered. The Belgian Malinois head tilted slightly as he interfaced with the station's systems through his cybernetic implants. A moment later, a three-dimensional map appeared in Harper's heads-up display, showing the fastest route to their objective. As they pushed deeper into the station, the effectiveness of the K9 units became increasingly apparent. Their enhanced senses detected hidden enemies and ambushes before they could be sprung. Their strength and agility made them lethal in the close confines of the station's corridors. And their ability to interface with alien technology allowed the strike teams to bypass security systems and access restricted areas with ease. But the Zar'kesh were not about to give up their stronghold without a fight. As the teams neared the command center, they encountered increasingly stiff resistance. Energy beams sizzled through the air, and the station shook with the impact of heavier weapons. "They're throwing everything they've got at us," Wilson growled, as they took cover behind a twisted bulkhead. Harper nodded grimly, which means we're on the right track. Rex, Tank, create a diversion. Shadow, find us another way in. The dogs sprang into action without hesitation. Rex and Tank charged down the main corridor, their armored forms drawing the bulk of the Zar'kesh fire. Meanwhile, Shadow slipped into a maintenance duct, her lithe form navigating the tight space with ease. Moments later, Harper's neural link with Rex showed him a view of chaos erupting in the Zar'kesh ranks. The two dogs were wreaking havoc, their enhanced strength and combat algorithms making them nearly unstoppable in close quarters. Now Harper shouted as an alert from Shadow indicated she'd found an alternate route. The strike team burst into the command center from an unexpected direction, catching the Zar'kesh officers completely. Strike team burst into the command center from an unexpected direction, catching the Zar'kesh officers completely off guard. In the ensuing chaos, Harper and his team made short work of the alien defenders, their movements perfectly synchronized with their canine partners. As the last Zar'kesh fell, Harper approached the central command console. "Rodriguez, get to work on that data extraction. Wilson, set up a perimeter. Rex, Tank, Shadow sweep for any hidden threats." The dogs fanned out, their enhanced senses probing every corner of the vast chamber. Meanwhile, Rodriguez interfaced with the alien computer systems, his fingers flying over holographic displays as he sifted through terabytes of data. Sir Rodriguez called out after several tense minutes, "I think I found something. It's not good." Harper joined him at the console, his eyes widening as he took in the information scrolling across the screen. "My God," he breathed. "They're planning a full-scale invasion of the Orion Arm. Multiple strike forces, each targeting a different colony world simultaneously." Wilson cursed under his breath. "With most of our fleet tied up in defensive operations, we'd be hard-pressed to repel an attack of that magnitude." "Which is exactly what they're counting on," Harper nodded grimly. "Rodriguez, download everything you can. We need to get this intel back to command ASAP." Suddenly, Rex's bark cut through the tension. Through their neural link, Harper saw what had alerted his canine partner, a hidden door sliding open in the far wall of the command center. "Ambush!" Harper shouted, diving for cover as a massive Zar'kesh warrior emerged, wielding a weapon unlike anything they'd seen before. The alien's first shot went wide, striking the command console and sending sparks flying. Rodriguez scrambled away, clutching the data drive containing the vital intelligence they'd come for. But before the Zar'kesh could fire again, a blur of fur and metal slammed into him. Tank, using his considerable bulk augmented by cybernetic strength, had tackled the alien warrior. The two titanic forms grappled, crashing into consoles and bulkheads. "Tank, disengage!" Rodriguez shouted, fear evident in his voice. The Zar'kesh's weapon was glowing ominously, building up to what promised to be a catastrophic discharge. But Tank didn't retreat. Instead, the Rottweiler's jaws clamped down on the alien weapon with incredible force. Servos whined as the dog's cybernetically enhanced muscles strained against the device. With a sound like tearing metal, the weapon crumpled in Tank's jaws. A moment later, it exploded, but the blast was contained, Tank's armored form shielding the human team from the worst of it. When the smoke cleared, the Zar'kesh warrior lay still, and Tank stood over him, singed but triumphant. "Good boy," Rodriguez breathed, rushing to check on his partner. Harper allowed himself a moment of relief before keying his comm. "Strike teams, objective secured. Begin exfiltration immediately. Martinez, we're going to need emergency pickup." As they made their way back to the extraction point, fighting through pockets of Zar'kesh resistance, Harper couldn't help but marvel at the performance of the K9 units. They moved with a grace and lethality that seemed almost supernatural, their actions perfectly coordinated with their human handlers. Finally, they reached the hangar bay where their drop ships waited, but their escape wouldn't be easy. A full company of Zar'kesh troops had set up a blockade, laying down a withering field of fire. "This is where we make our stand," Harper growled, taking cover behind a twisted piece of hull plating. Rex, Shadow, Tank initiate Protocol Omega. The three dogs shared a look, as if communicating on a level beyond human understanding. Then, as one, they charged into the fray. What followed was a display of combat prowess that would be talked about for years to come. The dogs moved like living weapons, their every action guided by a combination of animal instinct and machine precision. They darted between enemy positions, neutralizing Zar'kesh warriors with targeted strikes to vulnerable points. They used their enhanced strength to overturn makeshift barricades, and their advanced sensory suites allowed them to anticipate and avoid enemy fire with uncanny accuracy. Inspired by the dogs' fearless charge, the human soldiers pressed forward. Harper found himself fighting back-to-back with Wilson, their weapons spitting death as Rex and Shadow coordinated their attacks to herd the Zar'kesh into killing zones. Just when it seemed the tide was turning in their favor, a deafening explosion rocked the hangar. Harper looked up to see a Zar'kesh heavy weapons team had breached the upper level, their massive cannons trained on the embattled human forces. "Take cover," Harper shouted, but he knew it was too late. There was nowhere to hide from the impending barrage. That's when Tank made his move. The Rottweiler launched himself upward with incredible force, his powerful legs augmented by hydraulic pistons in his cybernetic limbs. He soared through the air, a canine missile, on a collision course with the Zar'kesh gun emplacement. The alien gunners, caught completely off guard by this unconventional attack, barely had time to react before Tank crashed into their position. The dogs' armored forms smashed through their defenses, scattering the heavy weapons team and neutralizing the threat in one audacious move. With their biggest advantage eliminated, the remaining Zar'kesh resistance crumbled. Harper and his team fought their way to the dropships, the dogs providing cover and taking down any alien foolish enough to make a final stand. As the dropships lifted off, streaking away from the doomed battle station, Harper allowed himself a moment to breathe. He looked around the cabin at his battered but victorious team, his eyes lingering on the three dogs who had made their escape possible. Rex padded over, resting his head on Harper's knee. Through their neural link, the captain felt a wave of satisfaction and unwavering loyalty from his canine partner. "We did it," Boy Harper murmured, scratching behind Rex's ears. "We really did it." The flight back to the Artemis was a blur of debriefings and medical checks. The intelligence they'd gathered was transmitted to UF High Command, setting in motion a flurry of activity across human space as the fleet prepared to counter the Zar'kesh invasion plans. Days later, as the Artemis made its way back to Earth for repairs and resupply, Harper stood in the ship's observation lounge, gazing out at the star-streaked vista of hyperspace. Rex sat beside him, a silent but comforting presence. Commander Martinez joined them, datapad in hand. "Sir, I've just received word from Admiral Chen. The counteroffensive is underway. Early reports suggest we've caught the Zar'kesh completely off guard. It looks like we might have turned the tide of the war." Harper nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Good. That's good." Martinez hesitated, then continued. "There's more, sir. High Command is expanding the K9 program. Dr. Reinhardt's been given a blank check to develop the next generation of war dogs. They're calling it the Cerberus Initiative." At this, Harper turned to face her, his expression thoughtful. "The Cerberus Initiative," he mused. "Guardians at the gates of hell." "It's an apt name," Martinez agreed. "After what those dogs did on that station. Well, I don't think anyone's questioning their effectiveness anymore." Harper knelt down, looking Rex in the eyes. The dog's gaze was as intelligent and loyal as ever, despite the battles they'd been through and the changes wrought by technology. "What do you think?" Boy Harper asked softly. "Ready to guard the gates of hell?" Rex's tail wagged once, decisively. Harper stood, his resolve strengthened. "All right, Commander. Tell Admiral Chen we're on board. But make it clear these dogs aren't just weapons. They're our partners, our friends, and we owe them every bit as much loyalty as they've shown us." Martinez nodded, a hint of a smile on her face. "Understood, sir. I'll make sure that's crystal clear." As she left, Harper turned back to the viewport, Rex a steady presence at his side. The stars streaked by, each one a potential battlefield in the war to come. But for the first time in a long while, Harper felt a glimmer of hope. The Zar'kesh, and any other threat that dared to challenge humanity, would soon learn a lesson as old as Earth itself: never underestimate the bond between a human and their dog. In the vast, cold reaches of space, that ancient partnership had evolved into something new, something powerful. The dogs of war had been unleashed, and the galaxy would never be the same.